our starting point. We take all these static estimates, and then we try to combine them for a bottom line, and that really has to do with figuring out these dynamic effects. Dynamic, just not really in the full sense of the word. This is about as dynamic as we get for economists, but the idea is to come up with behavioral effects. And so here we're talking about really three classes of it that we're focused on. One is, well, what does the new tax system, what does that mean for the economy, for firms and workers? How are they going to change their behavior in light of a reduced, in many cases, tax burden? Secondly, like Chris spent a lot of time talking about tax planning, and the fact that now we have helped some types of taxpayers with the new system, with the new bill, and maybe disadvantaged others. And so to what extent are tax planners and tax attorneys and CPAs and the like going to adjust their reporting? And finally, what about government responses in terms of state and local governments, and what are they going to do in face of this? So it's all extremely uncertain. As Chris mentioned, the international part being particularly bad. But nevertheless, it is a tough problem. So what we have to do is lean on our process, our forecasting process, even more so than usual. The only one, with all the uncertainty, the only certain thing is that our estimate is going to be way, way off in the end. But to try to get it, at least, from a planning perspective, the best we can do for the state is really to try to pull in our advisory groups. In particular, our group of CPAs and tax attorneys who know a whole lot more about this than we do. We're also going to start kicking off our forecast season, as we always do, with our economic advisors at the end of the week, and we'll talk a little bit with them about these topics too. But the big question is, which part of this is a big deal? What sort of thing are these strategies are you employing, or your clients are employing? Which are these things that should we really look into and highlight, or which of these behavioral effects may actually move the needle? And so I think that's really, all we have to go on. We start with, like I say, the great work from LRO and those detailed estimates. We're going to go and start putting them in front of people throughout the month and see what kind of feedback we get and what they're saying and also, of course, talk with our folks in other states that are, do the similar things as we do. So the first place in terms of the behavioral effects we're going to look at is the impact on the economy. And for this, we're actually starting to get a lot of feedback from the nationwide forecasters, and we're starting to get a little bit of a consensus forming. Insofar as, for the most part, economic forecasters are kind of, meh about the economic impact of this. Don't get me wrong, it's unequivocally good. Mid. Right. Meh. I guess that's a technical term. Yeah, I can send you the definition later. But unequivocally good in terms of near-term production. The standard model says, well, deficit spending, whether it's done through tax cuts or spending increases, does give you some kind of stimulus in the near term. You're borrowing from future tax revenues in order to spend more today. And so to the extent that this tax bill increases the debt by $1.5 trillion, that's a stimulus today, and we're seeing that in the forecasts. But one big takeaway from the standard economic model is that this kind of fiscal stimulus is more effective when there's slack in the economy. When we're not necessarily operating up at our capacity constraints, so when people are don't feel secure with their incomes or their jobs, or the businesses don't feel secure with their future sales, you may get a bigger bang for your buck. You get a more impact on output. But we're in a way different world than Keynes was when he suggested it would be a good idea just to pay people to dig holes and then pay them to fill them back up. We're in a place where we're not going to get that much bang for our buck. People are secure. Firms are seeing sales growth, and in particular, firms are sitting on a lot of cash right now and don't have a lot of constraints in terms of their credit and their ability to to expand. And so for the most part, not seeing a whole lot, but I'm going to pass it over to Josh, who is going to do a little bit of a lit review on what we're looking at and highlight what our primary vendors are saying as well.